Nigeria has one of the worst statistics when it comes to women political participation. After the last general election, we currently have about 4% of women in elective position, which is very, very low compared to countries like Rwanda that has over 60% of women. If you go to South Africa, if you go to Kenya, meanwhile we are the giant of Africa, but then we have women that constitute about 50% of our population but have not been given the space to occupy strategic position. And we all know, apart from political positions, women are doing very well in other areas. If you look at businesses, women are doing well. So we don't lack women with capacity to occupy strategic position, but the enabling environment is not there for them. So we actually have women that have what it takes. But if you look at women that aspire to be in political positions, after the last general election, UN Women converged all the females that contested for different positions at national, state levels. We discovered that there were a lot of factors that made them not to continue with the race. Some of them were forced to step down. Some of them, their families' life were threatened. Some of them, even their spouses threatened to, end the marriage if they continue. So these are some of the factors that limit women to actually occupy those positions.
It's a very interesting point that he's raised there, and that is the UN Women Programs Director talking about the impact that women have in politics. And of course, looking at the fact that, well, he's correct, 4% of women in elective positions, meanwhile women make up 50% of the population. We'll discuss that, among other issues, bedeviling our nation. And joining us is someone who kind of understands these challenges that they're talking about there, and of course very vocal when it comes to good governance in the country. Joining us live in the studio is Hauwa Atiku-Uwais, a good governance advocate, member of the People's Democratic Party and daughter of the candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the last elections, Atiku Abubakar. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, let's get the women issue out of the way. Because I know you don't really like to talk about when you want to put gender on things.
Yeah.
But he does point out the fact that there seems to be a gender dynamic, really. If you look at other countries in Africa,
yeah,
and especially when you go to a place like Rwanda, you just spend some time being quiet as a woman. You just kind of wonder, how do we replicate this in Nigeria? Is it even possible to do this? But that dynamic in Nigeria, it does feel like many women are used to mobilize. We're used at the grassroots level for mobilization when it comes to politics.
Yeah.
But then they give us concessions with collecting tickets. Okay, you pay half. You don't pay as much as the men do.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the positions themselves, you find that women are way behind on that. Even when it comes to appointments, even in the Tinubu administration, we saw that going on. From your experience being in politics and mobilizing and doing all the work that you do for the People's Democratic Party, what do you think is the issue here?
I don't think it's so much of an issue that we have. I think that it is a perspective that we lack. And my perspective is simple. I grew up in a family where gender didn't matter.
Yeah.
I've got 10 brothers and 17 sisters. And for my parents, it didn't matter if you were a girl or a boy. It just mattered your capacity and ability. For instance, do you think being a woman hinders your ability or increases your ability to do your job?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. It's just a simple issue of you being able to do what you're tasked with. So I think that we need to shift our perspective from gender to capacity and ability, and being able to deliver on tasks that you've chosen or you've been given. For me, it's as simple as that. I don't like to dwell on the gender issue.
Because it does seem sometimes like we want to eat our cake and have it as women. You don't want to give as much as other people give because you are female. Oh, I'm married. Oh, I have children. You make those excuses, but you want the whole enchilada, and it doesn't really work that way, does it?
No, it
if we can focus really on KPIs. What are you delivering on? And then what benefits you get from what you've given.
Yes.
That's the perspective.
In fact, exactly. So you've got me spot on.
Yeah.
If you can focus on that and move away from the fact that you're a woman, I think it sorts everything out. My mother raised 6 children of her own. She was a civil servant for 30-something years, and she delivered at all times, at home and at her job. Nothing hindered her. Being a woman didn't hinder her. You see, so I don't think that it's an issue that we need to harp on. And because the more we talk about it being an issue of gender, it then becomes an issue of gender. But it's not an issue of gender. It's an issue of your capacity to deliver.
Yes.
That's what it is. Nothing more.
I'm looking forward to that period where it doesn't matter what it is.
Yes.
I don't care what gender you are. Are you able to deliver?
That's it.
Let's move on now to politics. Let's talk about the PDP. You're a member of the People's Democratic Party.
Yes.
Everyone has been talking about the PDP since that meeting. Since that is the Board of Trustees meeting, wasn't it? That happened at Wadata House.
Yes.
And the issue with the office of the National Secretary and the ups and downs. I mean, I was saying it here on the program. I wish I was a fly. I paid to be a fly on the wall to know what happened inside that made Mr. Okoye run out of the hall like that, you know. And of course, all the issues around offices. We have factions in the PDP who do not believe that Damagun should be acting chair of the party. And there are people who also believe that Mr. Samanyan should not have even, the contest even for his office shouldn't have happened. And then the issue of whether it is constitutional or whether it is a party issue. Give me your thoughts on these issues.
So my thought basically on this issue is that, listen, we have a working document. We have a constitution of the PDP. Are we acting according to it? Because for me, I go beyond the party. I think about democracy as a whole. I think about where we want to be as a nation with democratic tendencies and inclinations. Is this where we want to be? And I think that for most in the PDP as well, especially you know, those where at my own strata where I am, we really just want a party where we have democratic rules that are being followed, the constitution is being followed, and all these things are, because I mean, when you think about it, it's quite tedious to keep talking about the same thing, about the same issue without moving forward. So for me, I just want a viable alternative to what we have. Do we have a viable alternative? For me, that is the question. All opposition parties should be able to work within their constitution and their working documents and enshrine democracy as the founding fathers of democracy in Nigeria envisioned.
Is the PDP, in your view, doing the role of a viable opposition party to the APC as is right now?
As is right now, there are hiccups. Let me put it that way. There are hiccups. It is still a party that can rise to the occasion, but we need to do the right things. And this goes out to all opposition parties in Nigeria. Everybody needs to get its act together. All parties need to get their acts together. And so we can come back to the drawing table and provide an alternative, a credible and viable alternative to what we have. Because what we have is just not working for us.
I mean, it's interesting that you brought up the party constitutions. Many people have accused your father of being the problem. He shouldn't have run in 2023 because you have a formula. The North 8 years, the South 8 years. This has been the formula over the years. It's an unspoken rule. We've all accepted it and moved on. But understood the concept behind it. We want to be able to see power shift from parts of the country so we can see governance affect different parts of the country. Now, I know you're going to say my dad had the constitutional right to rule, but should he, the constitutional right to run, but should he have, considering this formula in 2023 and in 2027, should he run again?
I think that you're getting it all wrong, because this issue of the North and the South in the PDP has been hashed and rehashed and hashed and rehashed over and over again. I remember a couple of months ago, my older brother, Shegun Showomi, was here, and he talked about the dynamics of that particular issue about the North and the South. But for me, now this is the very important thing that I want Nigerians to focus on. It's not about where you come from. Yes, we want to change in terms of diversity of the people that rule us, or rather that lead us. That's the key word, which we're not getting much of. But then do you have to look at it as a regional thing? I don't think so. I really don't think so. As a Nigerian, I am open to anyone leading the country where it should be, whether that person is from the north or the south. It really shouldn't matter at the age that democracy is growing around the world. I mean, you just talked about Rwanda, for God's sake. Do you think it matters if they don't even like it anymore when you call Tutsi and Hutsis, and they don't like it because they've moved beyond that. And I think that the discussion shouldn't be about where you're from. The discussion should be, are you able? Are you capable?
So have we moved beyond that?
We need to. We cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results. We cannot keep talking about someone's sex, someone's age, someone's religion, someone's ethnicity to get a leader. Where has it gotten us to? Are you proud of the Nigeria we're living in right now, where we're at? Because of all of these dynamics that we keep talking about and we keep hashing about. Are you happy with it? I don't think an average Nigerian will sit down and say, I'm happy with where Nigeria is. So we need to move beyond all of that.
My colleague in Lagos is itching. Itching to get to you. Go ahead, Aya. You have the floor.
About old things that are supposed to have passed away, Madam, I'm more interested in those of us who are young and looking forward. It's, for me, one of the major concerns is the inclusion level, the level at which young people are introduced into politics, or that they are not even included at all in the political conversation. Do they have a space in the room? For how long are they going to be playing, quote unquote, catch up? Back in the day, the days that Kayla is trying to remind you of, the days of mommy and daddy, they started young. They were in government when they were very young, in their 20s. As we talked about Murtala Mohammed this morning. He was part of the people who led the coup in the 60s. He was born in 1938. And, we have also spoken about the Gowons of this world, the Awolowas of this world, the Nnamdi Azikiwes of this world, the Tafawa Balewas of this world, and the rest of them. They started very young. They started in their 20s. But it would seem like we are not even allowing the young people the appropriate space in the room to make plans, to be part of decisions that will shape their future and the future of their own children. What do you think?
Okay, so for me, I don't think that, for the basic truth is that power is not going to be given to you. You have to want to partake in it, and you want to have to be serious about it. So the last election, I took it upon myself to go out there and participate actively and look at the actual issues that bedevil our democratic processes and our electioneering processes. And, dare I say that I've gathered a lot of knowledge from that. And with that, I'm hoping to do a lot of things to, help our democracy. But for you to sit down in the comfort of your room and to think that the older generation will just open up the way and just leave you to come and take power away from them, I think is a serious misconception. It's, these Gowons and Tafawa Balewas that you talked about just now, they were daring enough to put themselves out there. Can you see the young people doing that? They apart from being daring enough to put themselves out there, they were focused. They knew what they wanted to do, what they wanted to achieve, and they set out to do exactly that. Now we're talking about a whole different breed of people. We're talking about AI, we're talking about fraud, we're talking about education, we're talking about exposure, there are so many other dynamics that just didn't even come into play when the Tafawa Balewas were there. You know, so I think that we need to look at ourselves as young people and to find out what we can actually and honestly give to the nation. Not take, give. I think it's very, very important and very vital. And I think that that is the question that young people should be asking themselves. What am I willing to give for the benefit of my country? From there, hopefully, we can have a more serious conversation on involving young people in politics and position of influence and power.
Madam Hauwa Atiku-Uwais, I'm trying to get online to see what people think of what you just said now, particularly the young people. Because as far as they're concerned, what's Nigeria going to give me? That's the primary rhetoric. And here you are preaching good governance. I mean, you have listened to it all. You, one way or the other, you had an experience of what people did during the good governance protest recently, the 2020 End SARS movement, which was spontaneous all over the nation at a particular time, and mostly driven by young people. So perhaps the challenge is that of direction. People can't just jump into the ring without some form of direction, without some form of preparation.
I agree.
What do you think? How do they, I think perhaps the issue is that first step. Since I was young, I've been hearing youth are the leaders of tomorrow. I'm still hearing the same thing. And it will seem like there is no process through which people get into it, except the people. In fact, some people will say that you are here because your father, you know, grew through the ranks, sort of. But then there are opportunities for others. So how do they get that requisite training, preparation they need to get into the room in a way that, as you said, is not overtly forceful, but at the same time firm enough to be heard?
Okay, so first of all, I'm here because of obviously my choices. I was obviously sent to school to study. I studied. I did what I had to do. I came back to my country. I did my NYSC in very deplorable conditions, but I did it nonetheless. Do I want it to be better? Yes. Now I'm not so young, actually. I've got 3 kids, so I don't think it's an issue of being young. For me, it's an issue of wanting better. I'm not here because of my dad, but my dad will always be the elephant in the room, right? But I say this all the time to young people. If I am able to try and break out from the shadow of my own father, then there is no limit to what you can do when you don't have to deal with what I have to do. Because if I say something, they say, Atiku's daughter says something. If I do something, Atiku's daughter does something. It is something that I have to live with. And I also have to find a way to break that barrier and to ensure that people are seeing me for me. Before the election started in 2023, the whole of 2022, I tried to put young people together to discuss the polity, discuss where we want to go as a young group. Yes? And this I continue to do, to sensitize, to educate, to mobilize. These are choices that I made. My father didn't make those choices for me. My mother didn't make those choices for me. I made that choice. Because, listen, I look back, and like you said, I am still listening to the fact that children are the leaders of tomorrow, but I genuinely want my children to be the leaders of tomorrow. I don't want to be there when my children are supposed to be there. It's as simple as that. So yes, I'm thinking about my 3 children, and I'm looking and I'm saying, what are the choices I can make today to better their years in 20, 30 years? These are the things that we need to talk about. It's not such a short-term thing. It's a long-term thing, and you have to be extremely deliberate about where you want to go.
I love the way you've put it, but I'd also ask this. One of the things I say, and having spoken to so many people about good governance and all over the years, I keep asking one question. Do we have a system through which people can grow into leadership? Do we have a culture an internship culture at the governance level, at the private sector level, where people, irrespective of who you are, where you're from, well, maybe the private sector has set such internship programs, but I'm not sure we can say the same for governance. I know that there are youth parliaments all over the place, but whether or not those amounts to anything in the long run, that's another conversation altogether. So do you think, on the one hand, the people who are in government today, who've been in government for, as we say, donkey years, do you think it's time for them to begin to bring up some people, put them forward, and recruit them in their place so they can resign? And/or do you think we should institute a school of quote-unquote government, a school, a process that people are compelled to go through if they have to be in government because of all the issues of corruption and those other things that do not encourage our values?
Actually, I like your last question because it wasn't so much a question, it was a very, very valuable suggestion. Perhaps this is something that the country needs to look at because obviously the system that we have isn't working. So for me, it's simple. The system we have isn't working in terms of recruiting credible people into government, people that, you know, can deliver. The system we have truly isn't working. So what do we need to do? Change the system, change the recruitment process. How do we get people that are credible? How do we get people that can deliver on what they promise? Because, I mean, it's not enough to go and, you know, get a podium and get on it, get a speaking microphone and just keep talking to people and saying, I'll do this, I'll do that. And you get into office and you forget about them. So we need to find a system that ensures that the people that can do the job actually get there. The people that want to do, you know, the service, you know, this is what government is all about. And this is what I keep saying all the time. Government is about service to the people. It's not about service to your pocket. It's not about service to your family members. It's about service to the people. So we need to get people that actually want to serve their nation in there. And like you said, you gave a very valuable suggestion. Maybe it is time for us to create a system where people can be put through, you know, through leadership positions, starting small and all the way through. Because right now, I don't see it. I don't see it. And that's why the conversation about taking power comes in, you know, because you're not given the space to actually grow and move. So you need to take it. But if you're given the space, I think that perhaps young people can actually get in there.
Very insightful conversation right there. Do you personally, as we wrap up, do you have political ambitions?
Not right now.
Not right now?
No.
So you're not running for governor of Adamawa State, no, Senate, House of Reps, nothing?
Maybe the president of Nigeria one day. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, well, I want to thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Hauwa Atiku-Uwais, good governance advocate, member of the People's Democratic Party, and daughter of the presidential aspirant under the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 general elections, Atiku Abubakar. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have two messages here. Professor Nakana says, on the other hand, crude oil exports, and I think he's talking about the export ban, crude oil exports ban from Nigeria could significantly impact the country's economy by reducing its primary source of foreign exchange, potentially leading to a decline in government revenue, impacting currency value, and putting pressure on the economy to diversify towards other sectors, while potentially offering benefits like increased domestic refining capacity and value-added product production if managed effectively. Ayo, you've got one.
Yes, Festus Akimboyewa says many of the petrol tanker fires we have in our country are preventable. If only the authorities are willing to do their jobs. Vehicles used to transport large quantities of dangerous goods will, like petrol, must meet safety requirements and comply with the relevant laws. Any petroleum tanker found not to be fully compliant with safety requirements and laws must be impounded and owners prosecuted. Thank you, Festus, but I don't even think that is a new thing. I think it should be a no-brainer, but maybe it's a little more than rocket science for some people to know. Anyway, that's the show today. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Ayo Makide. Enjoy the rest of your day.
It's hump day, the middle of the week. We're almost there. It's almost Friday. So have a wonderful rest of your week. I'm Kayla Magwa.